What's going on, young people? I feel like it's been a while since I've done one of these, but glad you are here for our first lecture, our first homework video of Unit 6, Developmental Psychology. I mentioned in class, we had 5 units first semester. We only have 4 units second semester, okay? That'll take us to about spring break, and then we'll spend April and the beginning of May just getting ready for that AP exam, okay? Developmental psychology, the study is how we change as we get older. So hopefully you're with me in class. You took the notes on fetal and motor development, like how babies develop. Today we're going to be talking about how your relationship with your parent matters. Okay. Then we'll talk about how your thinking changes, what Freud said about development, moral development, social development, becoming a teenager, getting older, and that'll be this unit. So all about how as we get older, we change. So today we're going to be talking about what's called attachment. Attachment is about a baby's relationship to a parental figure. So the first guy to do research on attachment was not studying humans. He was actually studying baby geese, goslings, not like Ryan Gosling, but baby geese, right? So make sure you circle or star his name, Konrad Lorenz. Sometimes I call him Quack Quack Lorenz, because he studied these baby geese, baby ducks, to see what happened to them when they were little. What he found was that they have a critical period. Now, that's a phrase that we use when we talk about language, how there's an important stage of development where you have to be exposed to language in order to fully develop language. Well, Konrad Lorenz found that for baby geese, there's this time period right after they hatch, right after they're born, where they have to interact with and latch on to a parental figure, an adult goose or something like a goose. So watch a video in class about this, but he called this process imprinting, to follow, to attach, to latch on to, okay? That's what these baby geese did. So in his research, this was in the 1930s, a long time ago, he said during the first 2 days after leaving the nest, the gosling follows the parent about. They have learned to recognize the parents personally, and this is fascinating. They're 2 years old. They will never mistake another pair of geese for their parents. That's something unique about geese, okay? Not true of humans, but it's an example of how powerful bird imprinting is. So Konrad Lorenz was the first researcher to study attachment. The second researcher to study attachment, still not studying humans yet, instead was studying baby rhesus monkeys. Okay, this is a baby rhesus monkey, so cute. And what Harry Harlow did was he presented these baby monkeys with a parental figure, okay, either a warm, soft cloth mother over a wire mother. Now, here's what's interesting about this, okay? The notes will come back, relax. The nice, soft cloth mama didn't provide anything for these baby monkeys, but the wire mother is actually where the baby monkey was getting food and water from. And the research at the time, the behaviorists thought that the mom that provided food, that reinforcement, that reward, that nourishment, that's the mama that the baby monkeys would like more. In reality, what Harry Harlow found was that the baby monkeys spent most of their day on the soft cloth mother. Nourishment was not important. What was important was what we call contact comfort. Okay, contact comfort. So here's that note again. Harry Harlow found that baby rhesus monkeys, that for them to form a solid attachment bond, they wanted the cloth mother because touch is important and that feeling of safety and security that was not provided by the hard, cold wire mama, okay? And we'll watch some of these videos in class as well. Famous experiment, Harry Harlow. They're so cute, right? So after Harry Harlow, the first researcher to talk about attachment in humans was a guy named John Bowlby. Okay, and John Bowlby said that what's true of geese, what's true of monkeys, is also true of humans, that children need to have a parental figure that they can latch onto. This is what helps them become full, happy, healthy adults. And he was mostly studying kids who were in rough situations, foster care, orphaned children. And he did a longitudinal study where he studied these kids for a long period of time to see how they turn out. What he found was that the kids who had some sort of guardian that they could look up to and connect with, not necessarily their biological parents, but they formed a healthy attachment relationship with an adult that that led to better outcomes for them as they got older. And that's how we start to discover attachments, okay? So, quick check for understanding. See if you can answer these 5 questions. We'll talk about them in class as well. All right? So that guy, John Bowlby, he had a student named Mary Ainsworth. And Mary Ainsworth wanted to do research to try and figure out how healthy an attachment these kids had. So Ainsworth developed an experiment that she called the strange situation. So I'll be calling her Ainsworth Strangeworth, if you want to write that down. Ainsworth Strangeworth, to help us remember that she did the strange situation. What she did was she and her team, they operationally defined 90 things that kids do, babies do, in their first year of life when they're interacting with a parent, a guardian, just specifically looking at their relationship with a mother, okay? So she would bring the mom and the baby into the lab, and she'd watch how they interacted with each other. Now, you don't need to write down these things, all 8 steps, but there are 4 bold words that you may need to know about. They all start with the letter S, all right? So in her strange situation, she said that as kids would come in, the experimenter would bring a parent and a kid into the playroom. The experimenter would leave while the kid played. And what they found was that the first thing here is the parent operated like a secure base. They made the child feel secure in a new environment, okay? Now, when a stranger would come in, sometimes those children would show a little anxiety about that. In this strange situation, the parent would leave and they'd watch to see what happens when the stranger interacts with the baby. And the parent would come back, and the kid would often run back to the parent because they viewed the parent as safety, safe haven from the stranger. Parent would leave again, stranger would come back in, and the parent would return. So 8 steps here to see how the baby would respond to being left alone, going to a new place, and interacting with a stranger in a new situation, okay? What Mary Ainsworth found is there are 2 types of attachment. The first type is what we call secure attachment. When the child likes the parent, the caregiver, and can be comforted by the parent or caregiver, upset when parent leaves, happy when parent comes back. Most infants, 70% of them, this is the way that they viewed their caregiver, all right? These are like parents that took care of their kids and were responsive to their child's need. Now, about 1/3 of infants were found to be insecure, okay? They could not be calmed by the parent, or they weren't upset when the parent left. That's unusual, and that is not good for attachment. So 3 types of insecure. Anxious avoidant. This is a kid who almost wants to avoid their caregiver, their parent. This might happen when a caregiver is neglectful. Some babies also had what's called anxious ambivalent attachment, when they seem to have mixed feelings toward their parents, okay? So they were unhappy when the parent left. When the parent came back, it's like they didn't trust the parent to actually be able to take care of them. Sometimes this happens when a caregiver is unavailable. There's also a 3rd type that is disorganized, which can be when a baby shows really strong emotions. Sometimes they're really happy to see the caregiver. Sometimes they're really upset by the caregiver returning. This often results from inconsistency. So this is like a neglectful parent, an unavailable parent, and a parent who is inconsistent. It leads to 3 different types of attachments, okay, all insecure. So how does this affect babies? Well, another researcher, Mary Main, I know that's difficult, so we have Mary Ainsworth, starts with an A, she came first, okay? Mary Main came later. What Mary Main said was that your attachment and childhood, so the result we get when you're 1 year old, interacting with your mom in the strange situation, that actually can predict how well you as an adult will form attachment to other people. So she did what's called the attachment interview for adults. So Mary Main, AI, she studied the attachment interview for adults, okay? Mary Main, and she found that if you had a negative relationship with a parent when you were little, it was going to make you more difficult to form positive friendships, positive romantic relationships, and it could impact the way that you parent in the future, okay? And this is sort of pop psychology common sense, that if you have a bad relationship with a parent, it could impact you going forward. So this unit, we're going to talk about, folks who say that they have trouble forming positive relationships, they have trust issues, or they have daddy issues, or mommy issues. That's a Freudian idea that comes from developmental psychology, and it's rooted in this attachment theory that we'll be talking about more throughout this unit. Okay. Check for understanding. Make sure you understand the difference between these terms and the difference between Mary Ainsworth and Mary Main. Okay. We'll talk about these in class. We'll go over these, but make sure that you know attachment types. The last section of today's lecture is about parenting. So I mentioned that your attachment style can impact your parenting style. So a researcher named Diana Baumrind, okay, wanted to study how exactly parents differ. And she found that there are two factors that determine effective parenting, okay? How demanding the parent is, so their expectations for their children, the standards that they set, how strict they are, right? And then the second thing is how responsive, meaning how supportive the parent is, right? How aware the parents are of their child's needs and how much they care about their child, okay? Your happiness, your well-being, okay? So this is a hard chart to see. You may want to look it up. I'll try and talk you through it here. But basically, there are 4 options of parenting, okay? There we go. On the top axis here, the y-axis, it goes from being demanding, how strict you are, to how relaxed and chill you are, undemanding. And on the x-axis here, it goes from how responsive you are to how unresponsive. So Diana Baumrind said there's 4 types of parents, okay? So parents who care a lot about their child's happiness, okay? They're super responsive and they're not very strict. They don't have high expectations or standards. We call these parents permissive parents. You don't need to write this down yet. It'll be on the next slide. Permissive parents. So parents who will let you kind of do anything you want, okay? The cool mom, if you've seen Mean Girls, you know, will let the kid do whatever. On the opposite side, we have the parents that are super, super strict and don't really care that much about kids' happiness, aren't very responsive. So these are what we call authoritarian. They're like a dictator, strict, high expectations, very demanding, but aren't very supportive, okay? They give orders, just do it or else, right? The best parents, Baumrind said, are a mix of being highly responsive and also having high demands and high expectations. These parents are authoritative, okay? It's like a mix of authoritarian, and a mix of permissive, authoritative. These are parents that have high expectations, high standards, and are also very responsive, care deeply about their children's success and happiness, okay? Worst case scenario down here, not responsive, low expectations, and also not very caring. Parents who have just given up, they don't care what the kid does, they're not going to support the kid, they're not going to be there, and they don't have high expectations for the kid, okay? Teachers also have these same traits, okay? So like parents can be divided up into these 4 categories. We'll talk about this in class, but teachers also can be either super strict, but not very supportive, super nice and kind without high expectations. They can have the mix, have high expectations, but also be supportive and help you get there. And then you can have teachers who just kind of like don't care at all. They don't seem to try or care how you do or care about you, okay? So same kind of thing as parenting. We do have teachers that fall into these 4 categories, all right? So go ahead and write down these 4 categories I just went over. So authoritarian, remember this is the one that's like a dictator, an authoritarian government, a fascist government, high demands, but doesn't actually care about citizens or about the children. They find this is often more used with sons. We'll talk about this in class, okay? There's an age difference that matters. Permissive parents, these are the ones that are too nice. They don't have high standards, but they're extremely willing to help out and respond to the child's needs. Authoritative, this is the kind of parent you want to be. This is the mix of the 2. This leads to the best outcomes, okay? And obviously neglectful is the worst, okay? That bottom left-hand category there, so. Fantastic. Uninvolved is what it said on the chart, but neglectful, same kind of thing. Neither responsive nor demanding. So last thing about Diana Baumrind's research, she found, and this was actually interesting, she found that spanking did not have negative effects So there's a debate in parenting about whether parents should ever use physical force. And a lot of the research says, no, absolutely not. That's not a good method of parenting. She was actually criticized and very controversial because she found that when you control for other variables like socioeconomic status, mild corporal punishment, spanking, physical punishment, it actually didn't have negative effects. It didn't have effect at all on kids. And people really didn't like that because they wanted the psychologists, the research to show that spanking was bad for parents. She found that mild corporal punishment didn't have an effect. She was also criticized because she didn't take into account the fact that, like, within one family, you might have parents or kids who have different personalities. The fancy word for personality is your temperament. Circle that word, star that word. It's how excitable you get, how emotional you get. It's your long-term personality. And what she didn't take into consideration is that one family might have kids with different temperaments. And as a result, they might have to parent differently within the single family. She made it seem like a parent just parented a certain way and all the kids got that parenting style. That's not necessarily true. And we'll talk about this in class. For those of you who have siblings, you may feel that your parents parent differently depending on the kid, the oldest versus the youngest, or boys versus girls. So we're going to talk about that in class, but something she got criticized for. Okay. Make sure you can answer these questions. Quick little check for understanding here. We'll go over this stuff in class. Make sure you're keeping up with things this unit. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you in class. Bye.